Hello everyone, we're here to talk about how to fix your Whirlpool made machine. It may not be branded as a Whirlpool, mine's a Roper. You'll see Kenmore's or any other brand that Whirlpool has made. Generally, the lid switch is over here actually, and it goes kind of down through a connector into the housing or into the cabinet, and you disconnect that, and the lid switch has a harness that goes around the edge of the machine. But this style has a different style of lid switch, and it uses a different kind of interconnect. And on this style of interconnect, they don't hold up. You'll notice this is melted in the center cavity here. This does not look as bad as a lot of the ones I've seen online, but this is a consistent problem with these. And I'll tell you, I design electrical harnesses for a living, and I can tell that this is not an original connector. A lot of times when you order a harness from someplace and you give them a drawing, they will come back and they'll say, well, we actually make this ourselves, or there's an aftermarket brand like Amphenol or a number of other brands, and they'll say we have the same geometry, but we can offer it to you for cheaper. And the reality is, just like everything else is not OEM, it's not as good. And you know, they saved a little bit of money, but it causes us problems for their customer. So I have found the original connector. Notice this is branded Molex. I have found the original connector. This part is available online as a Whirlpool part number, or a Mana or any other brand, whatever brand it is. And you'll notice they are slightly different. However, this is the real deal. This is really what you want right here. And when you buy this part number from Whirlpool, you don't get the terminals on the inside. You literally cannot make a connection. And I'm not even sure if they still offer the part number for the terminals, but they were very expensive. This is an all-in-one solution. I'm selling this connector, Molex branded. I got this from an authorized dealer, just retail priced, bought all the components for myself. And I made up a bunch of extra ones that I'm gonna make available for people because I recognize this is a common problem and there's a gap in the market. There's not currently a solution available, so I'm going to sell you an all-in-one solution to that. It's the connector, it's got the proper Molex terminals in it. I've got some cable that I've spec'd for it. This meets all the requirements of the terminals. This is an OEM quality connector and setup, and I'm going to sell it with not just 3 butt connectors like you need, but I'll toss in a 4th one just in case you make a mistake. And these actually have a sealant on the inside, so this will be a weatherproof seal because this is a washing machine. And while Whirlpool and Roper or whoever else feels that it's okay to use unsealed connections of poorer quality, that's not how we're going to fix it. We're going to fix it right. And I absolutely consider it a requirement that you also replace your actual lid switch, because if you can see in there, it's charred as well. This is something you need to see, because if you go putting a new connector on there, you still have high resistance in the circuit. Therefore, when you have current going through resistance, that's dissipating heat. And so you're gonna have the same problem if you don't replace the switch. I got mine on Amazon for $8, including shipping. It showed up in 2 days. You can find these really easy. So the real magic here is the availability of this kit. So I recommend you check it out. Don't throw your machine away. Don't go chasing for discontinued harnesses or any of that. So we'll get this sorted out. All right, I'm going to show you how to replace this style of lid switch. This is a 5/16 nut driver. Now there is a quick release here on the body of the switch, but you also have to lift the lid up maybe 15-20 degrees at least. And what you're doing, I'd give it 45 degrees. You're releasing a rod that goes up into that space. So on your new switch, go ahead and work that part in. You can now put the lid down, and you can go ahead and hook up your connector if you like to. And then don't forget to hook up your ground here. Your new eyelet needs to be connected. This is a safety feature, so don't forget it. And remember to hold your eyelet at least a little bit, so that if you're using a power tool like this, it doesn't just jerk the eyelet that way. You want to put your finger on here just a little bit, snug it, you're good. Remember when I was saying you really need to replace your lid switch as well? I took the cover off of this, I threw the ground strip away, so terminal 3 is empty, or whatever terminal that is. But you can see here the amount of resistance and corrosion that's in here. Don't even bother fixing your machine's harness if you're just going to leave your old lid switch on there. You must replace your lid switch at the same time. All right, so we are probably all familiar with the terrible melted connector condition. So when you purchase this kit, it comes with your repair harness, and it comes with not just the 3 connectors that you need, but there will be a 4th one in there just in case you make a mistake. I'm going to show you how to make this repair right now. I want to make something very, very clear. You'll notice that this is an unsupported length of harness here. That doesn't mean you can cut it shorter. Don't do that. So what we're going to do, we're going to find our damaged section of harness here, and it ends pretty much within a few millimeters of the back of the connector. And we're going to cut this at 3 different lengths to make sure that we cut out the bad section that's over here, but we leave a lot of extra harness, okay? So we'll cut that one close to the connector. Let's say the one in the middle, we'll cut maybe, call it 1.5 inches back. And then we'll cut the 3rd one 1.5 inches back from there. Plug your new connector in before you do any cutting on the new connector. Remember that it's better to have too much length than to not have enough. So even though the original routing kind of did this move right here, I'm going to push the original harness back a little bit and give myself some extra length. The butt connector itself does have a short metal shunt in the middle of it, so we'll cut the new harness not exactly where this one ends. We'll actually move this way just a little bit, so about right about there. Go ahead and remove your insulation. I'm using a very generic wire stripper and crimping tool. This is not anything fancy, and I'm doing that on purpose to show you that this is what most people are going to have in their home if they have anything. Don't forget to give it a good Whirlpool test. So I'm using what people will generally have in their home, and that's so you can feel comfortable with the tools that you have. When you go to do your 2nd stage compression like that, make sure you get a good, don't break the weather tight seal on the outside, but give it a good grip. Much better. Professional harness guys are probably looking at me like, why do you even own that tool? But this is what people are going to have. So you can make this repair very simply. These butt connectors have a sealing chemical or sealing compound on the inside. So you're supposed to apply heat with a heat gun, and that's going to shrink up the heat shrink and release the sealing compound. You can do that with a heat gun, but most of us are probably not going to own a heat gun unless you've needed one before, so you can do it with a lighter. You just want to make sure that you're moving constantly, because it's going to release some black smoke. You don't really want to burn the wire, but just for aesthetics, you also just don't want to get it dirty. I'm kind of a little bit of a perfectionist, but again, I'm using the tools that people are going to have in their home. So go ahead and just keep moving so that you don't char the wire in any one spot, but you want to keep heating up the jacket here. Okay. And if you could zoom in, there's just a little bit of clear sealant you'll see coming out of the butt connector, and that's perfect. That means that this is a watertight connection. So I'm going to do the same thing with the other 2 wires, and the reason I cut them at different lengths is so you don't end up with a cluster of just a knot of butt connectors on top of one another. You want them evenly spaced out so that your harness is as thin as possible, and that's not just for aesthetics, but it also reduces the amount of pulling and tugging that you get as things move. So that's how you complete that repair. Okay, so notice we've got our repair made. All three circuits have been spliced in here at different locations, so that you notice the harness doesn't change length or size very much here. The diameter is pretty consistent, even with the original wires. So this is pretty good. You'll also notice, like I mentioned, you want to leave a little extra slack on here. The original curve of this was something more like this, but you'll notice this is a pretty low strain condition for these. I should have maybe moved this butt splice a little bit farther this way, because you'll notice there's a little bend on here, but honestly that we're getting nitpicky. So I would say this is pretty clean, pretty easy repair to make. I did use a cigarette lighter, so you'll see I did char the wires a little bit, but when you look at the two, it's a pretty clear comparison here. This is not something that really seems to be available, and so this simple repair that pretty much anybody could make with basic tools should be a good value for anyone.